Please have a read of this. This is not about show time now. This is about a contract that you're going to be engaging yourself in. Not that this is binding, but we need to know what people believe. That this meeting acknowledges the work of ASMOF-Q, Together, SMO Task Force, AMA, AMAQ in bringing about significant and beneficial changes to the proposed SMO and VMO contracts, the Hospitals and Health Board Act, and the overall contract framework for senior doctors. So all those who acknowledge the huge work these people have done, a no-brainer. And a round of applause to... That given the changes that have been achieved, the meeting accepts the recommendation of all these groups, ASMOF, ASMOF-Q, Together, the Task Force, AMA and AMAQ, that mass resignation is currently not required. All those that feel, with the advice of the groups, that it's not required, raise their hand. All those that disagree with this? Thank you. I think the majority there was definitely to propose that. I beg your pardon. Any abstentions? Maybe 15, 20. Okay. That the meeting agrees that the contracts subject to individual legal advice and personal circumstances are now in a form where they can be considered by senior doctors, and ASMOF-Q and Together can ballot their members.
What contract? John, we haven't seen it. We can't rely on this government to act in good faith. We don't know what the contract says. We can't vote on this proposal until we actually see the contract. Otherwise, we diminish any ability to negotiate in the future. If we agree to this and back down or change later, we'll be seen as lacking in resolution. We've got to wait until we see it. I don't trust this government, John. I do not trust this government.
Okay. I don't think there's any question about the loss of trust. The question is, do the members and the people in the room have enough to say an answer to this? I know that the task force and the lawyers... So, very sensible answer from the lawyer that the ballot won't occur until you've got the contracts in your hands. I accept what you're saying tonight. It's very difficult. What are we voting on when we've not had a chance to go through it? One of the things that the task force and all of us who spoke to Mr. Springborg and Mr. Maynard, and they did accept it eventually, and we have to acknowledge with that. They've given us an extra amount of time to see whether you do accept or you don't accept, an extra month, I think. Which version? Okay. Well, I think we could... I mean, what's the best way that people would prefer it to be given? I think, to be fair, they were trying to get it out. So in what way do we want it?
We can't put a proposal when we don't have the contract. We can't put this proposal. Point of order,
yep.
There is no contract. So the motion is a nonsense.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's then have a vote on whether we can vote on it. That sounds a wee bit Irish, but there you go. I think the concern is, Siva, I understand your point, but I think the concern is if we don't know what the contract is and the changes are based on something that people have not seen yet, then it's not unreasonable that even if there's changes, because they don't have the contract to vote on. Does that make sense? No, John. No. I was agreeing with you.
I think...
We're talking about this proposal. Put this proposal or don't put it.
Yeah. So, okay, that's what we said. That's what he said. So, let's vote on the possibility. Hold on, so you've got a fair point. Let's put your hand down just now. Let's vote on whether this is votable. So all those that think we can have a who would like to? We've given that.
Look, the intent of this motion, as I understand it, and please jump in, is that we have an offer that, in the opinion of the people who've been in the room on the task force, is good enough that doctors need to look at it, that doctors need to look at it carefully, and doctors need to make a decision as a collective group and as members of their unions whether it is sufficient to settle this dispute or not. So that's not a decision that the task force members make in the room. We're there, and the doctors in the room in particular are there representing all of you and the members of the organisations on that task force. So this is not a motion saying that we in the room now agree to the offer or the contracts or we're going to sign them. What it is saying, we think from what we've heard from Luke and Howe and other people today, that this is a good enough offer that all of the doctors around the state and the members of the various organisations and unions should look at it in detail and make a decision. And Asimov and Together can put that to members to have a vote once they've seen, if not their contract, then at least the document that is being proposed by government to settle this dispute. And all of those documents, have a really good look at them, ask questions about them, analyse them, talk to their colleagues about them, and then give us feedback and make a decision as a group. That's my understanding of what the intent of the motion is, not that this group is saying they're all fine. Yep. This group is saying this is a good enough offer that everyone must have a look at it.
Consideration, I think that's the word that's the key part to this. It can be considered. It's not saying you accept it. That's why we've asked for an extra month.
And just to add to that, that's on the basis of our advice that you've also heard this evening, that in the current political environment, the advice from our legal team is that this is probably the best deal that we're able as the task force team to get for you, and we would like for you, the people out there, to have a look at this and then tell us what you think. And then if you don't like it and the ballots tell us that, then we'll go into bat again and see what else we can get.
But that's why the extra month. No, I don't think anything.
I think it's very unlikely that there'll be further changes over and above this one.
That's actually, to be fair, to the great credit of the task force and the lawyers. And I know you're not saying that as a discredit, but I think people have had to push, and we think this is a level where it's worthy of consideration. That's all this is. There's a month there, there's a ballot. Hopefully, you know, we've talked about the number of people that have joined the unions. This is where your voice comes in. You need exactly my analogy the whole way along is it's a house contract. You're not going to sign it until you actually see what you're buying. Stephen?
John, if we pass this motion as proposed, you can kiss goodbye to getting any changes to the differentials between new and
Any comments from here?
And the reason why we won't get any movement on that without some pressure is that they want to reduce our wages. And they want to put all the new doctors on lower wages, gradually increasing the difference over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yep, in the middle. Yep. I don't, like we've said, this is a dynamic process. I don't think anyone here, the people that have put in thousands of hours, I don't think anyone thinks this is finished. I think it's got a point that is worthy of offering to people for their opinion. None of us are elected. None of us are going to tell us that you should pick it. That's your decision, not ours. Yep, Tony?
Colleagues, I should make a comment. As has been explained to you, the task force thinks that this is worthy of your consideration. It will go to the ballot of members of both unions. We've got about 2,500 members now. We've got about 3/4 of the workforce of members of ASMOF-Q and Federal ASMOF. It will be an email ballot, and we're a very democratic and representative organisation, and we will do what the democratic process of our members tells us to do. So if you are very opposed to accepting this contract, then you need to vote that way. The emails should be next week, all being equal. We would expect to send out links to where the contract can be found on the Keep Our Doctors website, the explaining documentation, but you vote and we will listen and we will do what you want. So if 55, 60, 70% of you say this is not good enough, then that's what we will do. On the other hand, of course, if 65% of you say this is as much as we're going to get with this government, and by the way, I'm going to start lobbying to change the government, then that's what we will do as well. So do not be concerned that tonight's meeting sets the voting of the unions. This is an indication whether you think it's good enough to send to the members for their consideration and then to run a ballot of the 2,500 senior doctors in Queensland.
Thanks, Tony, for that clarification. So I think it really is, as we said, this is about consideration to go out to you. You get it, and then whichever union you're part of, and if you're not part of one, I suggest you join one, then that's where your actual vote of whether you'll accept this or not is going to take place. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, I haven't seen this resolution before put on the screen. I think the wording is very confusing. Why don't we park this and we'll reword this resolution. We'll move on to the other resolutions because actually some of the later ones might come and feed into this one. But certainly I think the wording doesn't reflect the intent of the question. We're not trying to give our endorsement of the contract that, as was quite rightly pointed out, we haven't seen. I've seen some correspondence that the Department of Health will try to get the contracts out tomorrow on the website, but I think we still, because negotiations are still taking place today, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream. But their intent is obviously to get it out via electronic form over the next few days.
So are we happy to just bypass that one? Lovely. Good. Let's move on. The bar will be shutting in an hour. That the meeting... Is that the same one? No, it's not. Good. That the meeting calls on the Queensland Government to work with the organisations ASMOF, ASMOF-Q, Together SMO Task Force, AMA and AMAQ, to closely monitor the implementation and the operation of the contracts and address any issues that may arise in a fair and equitable way. Raise your hands if you agree. And those against? Okay. Stephen? Noted. That the meeting acknowledges the concessions agreed by the Queensland Government. The meeting acknowledges the concessions agreed to by the Queensland Government and call on it to work more closely with the profession in relation to any future changes to employment arrangements for public hospital doctors so as to avoid a repeat of this type of dispute.
Well, you can vote this. You can vote against this resolution.
So all those in favour of this? I don't think it's... All those against? It's rejected. I'd just like to thank whoever wrote these slides. It wasn't me and I don't know who it was. That the meeting urges the Queensland Government to ensure that the next generation of senior doctors are afforded the same terms, so Stephen, this is what he talked about, and conditions as are currently being offered to existing specialists. This is essential if we are to continue to attract the best and the brightest medical workforce in the country and ensure the sustainability of the public hospitals for all Queenslanders. Okay, That'll make a difference. This meeting demands. All those that demand. Good. All right, can whoever wrote these slides come on up? Oops. Look, it's the second last slide. We're just going to crack through it. There you go. I'm going to read it first before I get shouted at. Hold on. Give me a wee second. There's nothing about short fact Glaswegians. That's good. Yep. Oh, somebody else is running this. That this meeting calls on the state government to allow those senior doctors who have already resigned as a result of the dispute to withdraw their resignations and be reinstated with no loss of continuity of employment or entitlements. So those that have resigned already, all those that want them to be allowed to be reinstated or demand that they be reinstated. Excellent. We got that one through. Thank you. Before the bottles start getting just one bottle to throw. Yep. So I'm going to go through these and you're going to tell me when to stop. This one? So. Yeah, we've just kicked it. We've just kicked it. Let's just move on. No, let's just move on. Look, there's clearly angst about this, and I think it's very reasonable angst. We need to see more detail. People have been working very, very hard to get this together. We actually postponed the pineapple for another week so that we could get as much clarity. The clarity is not absolute. This process is dynamic. It's not absolute. And I think we have to acknowledge that. We need the contract. We've moved that